my name is Jane Bowyer, and I am a graphic designer and illustrator. I've been working for myself. I've had my own practice for the last 5 years. Before that, I worked in agency jobs. I studied graphic design at university and then followed the usual steps of graduating and then doing internships and then getting that first junior designer job and then progressing through there. And then when I was about 25, 26, I decided to start working for myself. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. In terms of my kind of introduction into graphic design, I can't think of a particular piece of work. The sort of first thing that I saw where I thought, oh, that's amazing, I want to be a graphic designer. I think for me, my introduction to graphic design happened gradually over time from being a small kid engaging with cartoons and packaging, or even like things like cereal boxes, all those type of things. I really loved consuming that kind of visual culture, especially if it was bold and graphic and colourful. But it took me a long time to realise that those things that I was seeing on packaging and in poster designs and in things like that, maybe toy packaging more when I was a kid, I didn't sort of correlate that with the big professional behind that who was actually making that work. I must have just thought it appeared out of thin air. But then when I got to high school, I had a huge love of art through primary school and then at high school. Really loved the graphic design side of my art lessons, and I was making a poster one day, and my art teacher, when I was maybe about 12 or 13, Mr. Lee just turned to me and said, you can make a living doing that if you want. People will pay you to make that kind of work. And I was like, what? That's amazing. And so literally from that moment, I kind of got fixated on this idea of being a designer or making stuff using my sort of artistic abilities to make work and make money from. And so that's a path that I pursued right through until uni and then into my professional career now. I think once I kind of realised that graphic design was a profession, if I had to pick out some work that stood out to me, I'd say the work of artists like Barbara Kruger or artists like the Guerrilla Girls. They were the artists that my art teacher first introduced me to. And I think what really sort of spoke to me about that work was the way that it was the first time that I saw that graphic design or the sort of tools that go with design can be used to give people a voice. They can be used in a political sense and they can be used with purpose, not just to make packaging look attractive. It was less about the superficiality of visual design and more about the real sustenance and depth underneath, and something really like got me there with that. And it's something that I try and have underlying in all my work even to this day, that sort of idea of purpose with everything that I do. In terms of what I'm working on right now, bit of a strange time to be asking that. I was very, very busy before the pandemic. I'd just taken on a new studio space with a few friends, and we were trying to launch a new co-working space for fellow creative people called These Friends of Mine. But the pandemic's kind of put a stop in those plans for now. And because I work a lot with people in arts and culture and charity sector, you kind of saw overnight those people's jobs and livelihoods go away. And so obviously with that, the work is lost as well. And so as cheesy as this sounds, the thing that I've been working on right now is probably myself and doing work for me. Again, that sounds a bit cheesy, and I don't mean it in a cheesy sense. I think it's just for the first time in a very long time, as far as I can remember, it's the first time I've had forcibly been made to stop and reflect on my work and sort of assess my relationship with work as well. So I think from being 16, I've been in some kind of employment, whether that was in retail or design, and I've kind of been on a bit of a treadmill with that, just constantly grafting and constantly working. And I think the very nature sometimes of the design industry as well is that we're supposed to be grafting all the time, and and it's been like that for me for a very, very long time. And this has sort of forced me to put the brakes on a bit. And I think after the initial panic and wobble, what it's made me realize is this is an opportunity for me to kind of assess my practice and really think about where I want to go with it. And instead of just charging forward out of fear that if I stop, then I'll fail, it's actually made me realize that it's okay to take these breaks and reassess what you do. And actually, not only is it okay, but it's actually beneficial to you in the long term. Because I do think it's good as a creative to be able to reflect on your practice and check in with yourself and check in with others around you and think about, is this the path that I want to do? Are there other things that I want to explore? So that's been quite interesting for me. I guess going on to thinking about advice that I would give to people, I've got buckets of this stuff, if I'm honest, but if I had to kind of hone it down into some short like nuggets of advice, I think the first one, practically speaking, what I always say to graduates when they get in touch on how to get people to engage with their work is, instead of, when you get in touch with agencies or designers, instead of asking, are there any jobs going, always ask for a portfolio review. And that's something I pinched it from the book How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul, which I read when I was in my final year at university. And I just thought that was a great bit of advice, because it had never occurred to me before to not try and blag agencies about jobs, because it's very easy for agencies to say no, we don't have any jobs, goodbye. But it's much harder for someone to say no if you're asking for a portfolio review, because all you're asking for there is someone's time. And if I'm honest, I think you've got to be either an extremely busy, important person to say no, or you've got to be a bit of an arsehole if you're going to say no and not give someone a bit of your time. So I think, going as a bit of advice, say that to agencies, ask for a portfolio review. And then I guess something that's a little bit more, maybe not as sort of practical as that, but just something to kind of chew on and think about is, I always try and stick with this. It's try looking at things in a different way. I actually made a graphic for this for last year's Design Manchester. It was a poster exhibition. I forgot what it was called now, where I did a graphic of this because it's a bit of a mantra of mine. And I think whether it's, whether you're trying to solve a creative problem, so if you're getting stuck on a brief, or if you're trying to diversify the work that you do, find new streams of revenue, or even if you're just trying to resolve a dispute personally or professionally, I think trying to look at things in a different way is beneficial, because it leads to different kind of channels of opportunity and a deeper understanding, I think, if you do try and look at things from a different perspective. So just to kind of give an example of that, in this pandemic, it's very easy to kind of fall into that pattern of thinking that this pandemic has taken this, and this away from me. Maybe it's taken away your access to your tutors in person, the access to buildings and things like that. And it's very easy to think negatively and sort of despair. But if you try looking at it in a different way and think about, well, how do I make this situation work for me? How can I look at this in a way where I can benefit from it? I do think that gives you better mental health, and also it helps you to continue to move forward and stops you feeling a bit like a rabbit in headlights. So yeah, that's my solid bit of advice.